All right, my name is Matt Ayers, and I'm interviewing Miss Esther Boliantz. The address is 455 Logan Road. Today is Tuesday, June 14th, and the time is 9:54. How you doing today, Miss Boliantz?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good.
All right, I just had a first question for you was, were you born in Mansfield?
No, I was born in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Okay.
I came here when I was 5 years old. We moved here.
Okay. So why did your family settle in Mansfield?
Well, on my mother's side, most of her family, when they came from Austria-Hungary, they came to Mansfield. And then when she got married to my dad, which was from Canada, she was homesick for her family, so they decided to come to Mansfield. That's why they came.
Okay. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I have 2 sisters and 4 brothers. Is that right? 7 of us.
All right. So what was life like in your family growing up?
Well, it was pretty nice, but we lived through the Big Depression in '29. I can remember that. And things were very, very hard on a lot of people. A lot of them lost their homes, and there was a lot of sadness. And my dad ran a little grocery store at that time. At that time, it was nothing but little grocery neighborhood stores. They didn't have supermarkets like they have today. And the people would come in and they said, "Jeff, I got laid off at work, but I'm so hungry. Can you give me some food?" And he was so kind-hearted. He gave it to them, and we suffered because we didn't get the money. And finally, one day, somebody says, "Tomorrow you've got to move out of here. You haven't been paying your monthly payments after we bought it, and you just have to get out there. Where you borrow money at the bank or whoever it was." And we found out that we bought it from a man by the name of Ed Klein, and he was supposed to take the money and pay it off, and he wasn't doing that. And then one of our relatives, Dan Simon, says, "Don't worry, I'll go borrow money for you so you can stay here." So that was quite a jolt. Yeah.
Yes. Do you remember what Mansfield was like at all during the Depression time?
Yeah, it was down quite a bit. And people walking up and down the street because they weren't working.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we lived just next to a school. There was a house between us and, at that time, Bowman School. And then we had, in the store, we had a little candy counter, because a lot of the kids would bring their nickels and dimes, is all they had those days, and they'd buy candy, and we had to put up with that. But we finally got through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you said your father owned it was a grocery store at the time?
Yes.
Did your mother work at all?
Not until my father died. All of a sudden, through all that, I think all that tough luck that he's had and tough problems, he developed a heart problem, and he got so he couldn't work in the store anymore. And so Mom and I worked in the store. The others had jobs someplace else. And I can still see him because our store and our house was in one building, and one of our relatives made a little nice cubby hole we could look in the store. You'd look in there and he'd watch the customers as they went. I can still see him sit there and just hold his chest. He was only 51 years old when he died. After he died, then we had to take over.
What was the name of the store?
Boliantz Food Market.
Boliantz Food Market.
271 Harker Street, Mansfield, Ohio.
All right, so where did you go to school growing up?
Well, I went to Bowman School, went John Simpson Junior High School, Mansfield Senior High School.
So are there any teachers that you remember especially well?
I'm so forgetful. I'm sure there were some, but I forget. It's been so long ago. You know, I had a birthday this past week.
Oh, well, happy birthday, belated birthday.
I was 92 years old, so you can imagine not forgetting so many things.
Yeah, I hear something about a gym teacher that you said.
Yeah, tell about the gym teacher.
Tell me more about it.
How Uncle Bill was such a good athlete, and then you came.
Oh, yeah, right. My brother was very good at this. And he ended up going to college and being a gym teacher. He said to me, "Well, he could do it. Why can't you do it?" You know, when I playgrounds or whatever it was. Well, I'm not my brother, I guess. Yeah.
Excellent. So were you involved in any activities in school?
They didn't have too many activities in those days. You went to school and you went home and did your own stuff.
Yeah.
My activity was, they gave us so much homework all the time, and spent a whole evening just doing my homework.
All right, so what year did you graduate from high school then?
It's 1937.
From Mansfield Senior High?
Mansfield Senior High School.
Did you go to college after that?
Yes, I went to Ashland College, and I went there, and then I became a school teacher. And after I was start teaching, I applied for a job to get a job to teach, and they had one place at grabbing school, so I thought, I'm going to try that, because that's where I went to school. So I taught there several years. And I taught in the West First Street School. And what was the last one? Was it Brinkerhoff School? There were about 3 of them.
A prospect?
No, it wasn't Prospect.
I don't know.
But,
So was that your first job then? Yeah, as a teacher?
yes.
I guess besides the store, working the
Right.
store.
Yeah. So, see, and at that time, there was after World War I, and a lot of the boys came back, and they got married, and they had kids, and all of a sudden there was so many kids, the schools hardly had room for them all, because babies were being born, and by 6 years old they started, so they needed teachers real badly. And then I didn't quite finish my Ashland College. They said, we'll hire you if you only got a year or so to go. There was such a demand, so that's one reason I started teaching earlier.
So let me make sure I got this right. There was such a high demand that they said you didn't even, you could start before you were done with.
That's right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that, because I needed the job.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Because in those days it was even hard to pay for my tuition. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So then you started at Krevling, right?
I started Clifton.
Now we've talked to some people that actually were students there. Was it segregated when you started there at
No.
first? No. Okay.
Even when I went to school, it wasn't segregated.
Okay.
You know, we had a lot of nice kids.
Excellent. All right. So what was the neighborhood like when you were growing up?
Well, like I say, it was a poor end of town, so to speak. And we had some nice activities. There's a John's Park, which I think they still have.
Yeah.
They always had a watermelon festival every spring. We used to go to that. And sometimes, and my dad, because he was a butcher while he still was living, he said, Jeff, would you come up and help us cut the watermelons, you know? Because people had to cut them small pieces. He would take his nice, big, long butcher knives and go up there. I can still see him cutting those melons and getting them ready for the people that was enjoying watermelons. So that was nice. We had some nice activities. Yeah.
Do you remember some of the stores and restaurants in the neighborhood?
Who else was over there? I remember when, because there were no supermarkets then, but I remember we heard, it was rumored, there's a supermarket coming called A&P and one called Kroger's. That's going to affect our business, you know, because everybody's going to run to those. So, but there was one down on Bowman Street, an A&P, and a Kroger not too far from us. I don't know, I forget this word. But people started going there, but they finally came back after they found out they're much different. Yeah, so I saw a lot of changes, you know. Things changed.
Yeah, that was my next question. How is the neighborhood different today?
Well, not too long ago, my brother Ed said, let's go take a ride out there, because he hadn't been there for several years, quite a few years, so we went out there. And I was quite disappointed. It's being left down. Some of the houses should be painted, and they're not taken care of. I think what's happening, this is in every city, sometimes when a person lives in that house and can't finish paying it off, the keeper, or whoever owns it, they live in New York or someplace else. They don't live here. They don't have time to come back here and cut the grass and do all that. So I think it's because a lot of the owners are not local to do the work.
Right.
So I think that's my opinion of it. I don't know. But
Yeah, I think that is a lot of the case with some of the houses in that area. So.
yeah.
Let's see. So can you tell some of the memories you have about teaching at some of the schools?
Some of the members.
Some of your memories about teaching?
Memories. remember when I went from school to school, I had to make new friends with other teachers, and everybody was very, very nice. I appreciated it. We became good friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah. So there's a lot of memories as you look back and see.
Yeah. Do you have any ones in particular you remember?
Isn't that awful? I can't think. I contribute that to my loss of memory. So much has happened since, you know, you live this long, so.
Now, was it a situation where you lived at the business, or
Yes, that house, whoever built that house, it was one building. There was a big wall between. In the back room, they had like a storage room for, when they got to groceries, we had to bring them the big boxes and things. And we came through there and we came into the kitchen. And in our house, it was just big enough for us to live. It was 7 kids of us and Mom and Dad. And our grandma was still living. Those when grandmas lived with us, which now they put them all in nursing homes and things. But there was, two bedrooms on top of the store, 3, 4, 5 bedrooms upstairs. And I remember the steps were pretty steep, you know, it was hard for them. And then we had the living room, the dining room, and the kitchen. And then when we moved there, the kitchen was like 2 pieces, I don't know. So because our family was so big and we needed a big long table to feed them all, we had somebody, a carpenter, come in and take out that one wall and make it a nice big, and put a new floor in. And then that's where we spend most of our time in the kitchen, cooking and washing dishes, and doing homework, everything else.
So you mentioned that your father was a butcher. What other types of things did you sell at the store?
It was a regular grocery store.
Great.
We had the meat part, the butcher shop part, and the counters are altogether different at that time. You see pictures of it. And then we had regular groceries and vegetables, just like they have the small stores. And then in the spring, we had a porch in front of our house and a store. And in the spring, we always sold plants for people that wanted to plant a garden. And then a man south of town here, he raised them, and every spring he'd come and bring those boxes and set them on a porch, and people would buy those. And also, a little bit something different in our grocery store was, like I said, the candy counter, because so many kids, and we had one of the carpenters build a nice, it was a wall, and we slid the doors back and forth, and had all the candy in there. And those kids at that time were so poor, they had nickels and dimes, no dimes, pennies and whatever they had. And you stand, I want this, no, I think I want that. How much is this gonna cost? Oh, 3 for a penny? Okay, I'll take that. And they had to watch their pennies. So unless you live in a time when it's really poor, people don't realize unless some of them, of course, there was always a wealthy end of town. So people had the better job and got better pay and things, because those jobs had to be done too. And like I say, there was quite a few neighborhood grocery stores at that time.
So how long did the store last?
Well, we were there quite a long time, quite a few years. And then when we sold it to another man, and he finally sold it, and they just tore it down. I guess maybe the building was getting pretty old too at that time too. So
Any idea what year it was that you guys would have sold it? I mean,
I don't remember
can
when
you
that was.
guess at all? Like,
It's in the book.
oh,
It's in the book.
Yeah.
Okay, look in the book and see, because, yeah. See, we decided to sell it because, well, like I said, my dad was gone and I wanted to be a teacher, and then I was no longer working, so we just sold it and had a person that bought it.
Now, did they continue to keep it open for a while longer, or did it shut down pretty quick after that?
Well, they kept it for a while, and then they, like I say, they didn't pay like they're supposed to, and finally it was closed up too. They were there a little while, not too long. Now if you go by there, it's all empty, it's gone, it's been torn down.
Yeah. What did you say the address was again for that?
271 Harker Street.
271 Harker
And
Street.
the house was 273. Each one had a different number.
Oh, okay.
So the store was next door to the house.
They were built.
So you had, they were like,
But they had to number. The store had a number, and we had a number.
I see.
Yeah. It was right close to Johns Avenue.
Okay.
And across the street was Fox Hardware. Right across the street was Fox Hardware.
So was it on the opposite side of the street from where Bowman Street School was, or was it on the same side?
Same side.
Same side,
Same
okay.
side, There was one house between us and Bowman School.
Okay. Like on that corner there.
Yeah.
I know exactly what
See,
you're talking
then
about.
Johns Avenue comes through there, you
Mhm.
know. Yeah.
Okay.
But if you go out there now, a lot of things have changed. Some
Oh
houses
yeah.
are gone.
I think there's a vacant lot where you're talking about now.
It is.
I
It's
think
been
that's,
vacant for
yeah.
quite a while.
I want to say that our executive director, Deanna West Torrance, I think she told me that her grandparents had a store in that location, clearly after your family had it, and I don't know if maybe I might have that wrong, but I want, because she was saying she remembered going there and they sold candy to kids and
Yeah.
and all, you know, with the school right there, you got the
That's
captive
what
audience.
Kids remember the candy. that-
Sure, sure. That's
And actually, from the candy, the wholesale candy people, that man came and he'd say, what do you need? Every so often he'd come to sell us. And we'd pick out, well, we need some more of these and these and these. I can still remember him taking these boxes out and sticking them in there. Yeah, that was the sweet part of our life, the candy.
So tell us a little bit about one of the things that this project is about from our perspective is getting, telling a little bit of African American history. Now, racially, what was the neighborhood like when you were growing up? Was it
Well,
pretty well mixed, or was it a white neighborhood?
no, it
or?
wasn't white. We had some blacks, not too many, but there were some blacks. Too.
Okay.
Because as you see in my school picture, I have some black students too, didn't I? Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, I had a real nice experience. It's been 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago. So I had a phone call. This is Esther Boliantz. I said yes, and she says, I'm so and so. And I thought that name sounds familiar. She says, you know, I used to be in your class way back in the 4th grade. She says, I now live in Columbus. And she says, as I came from Columbus, I came to Mansfield, and I went out Ashton Road to my grandmother was sick or something. She says, and as I went out Ashton Road, I saw Boliantz Hardware out there on Ashton Road. Do you know? And so I stopped in there and I said to them, do you know Esther Boliantz? Oh yeah, it's our sister, you know. So that's why she called me. And she says, the reason I'm calling you, I'd like to stop in and see you once more. And she says, I said, okay, that's fine. I told her, you know, where to come. And she says, the reason I want to come tell you, she says, because I remember, this is what happened. Every day in school, we always had the Lord's Prayer every morning. And pledge allegiance to the flag, that was part of our. She said, I remember we had the Lord's Prayer every day. She said, I just want you to know I'm a Christian now, she said, and how much that meant to me. And I said, if only one of them, you know, became a Christian through it all, so I was glad to see her. So I said, unusual things like that happen. I never expected that. Yeah, so.
Excellent. Could you tell us more about the, you said it was the First Street School? That was one I'm not familiar with. Was it like an elementary school that was
Yes,
on?
it was. You
Okay.
know, we used to have, you know, the Catholic churches downtown.
What, St. Pete's? Yeah, okay,
St.
yeah.
Peter's, okay. Now, right across from them, there was a brick church, and that was the St. John's Church. Years ago, our church bought that church, because when they first came from Europe, they met in different homes and things. And then they rented like a hall downtown, but they wanted a church. And the St. John's, they went down First Street, and beyond that, and they built a new one, and they had that for sale, and our church bought that church from them. And then we were there quite a few. That's where I was baptized and grew up, and taught Sunday school and stuff. And then we got to be so many people. We said maybe it's time to build a new one. So some of our builders in our church, we had quite a few, the Getzes and Betzes, and they said out on Lexington Avenue there's a nice empty spot there. We said, way out there, that was like way out in the country at that time. That's the one we built this here in Mansfield, Middle Belleville, Apostolic Christian Church. And then, well, I'm telling you this, then the Catholics bought the old one downtown. They used it for their high school kids. They needed more, because you go to Catholic school too. And they didn't have enough room for all of them, so but I think it's still up, or has it been torn down? I've been downtown for quite a while. It's still there now. Is it still there? Yeah, they probably have, whoever has it now. There's quite a history to all the changes downtown.
Yeah.
And I remember too, when we used to go shopping, of course, we were lucky to have a car those days. So we'd go down to Bowman Street, and was it Main Street? There was a streetcar that went all the way. Remember the old streetcars that came up there and they took you downtown and you did your shopping?
Whereabouts would you pick that up? Like, could you just get it anywhere on Main Street, or were there specific stops?
I suppose at corners. I'm not sure,
At the
but
corner.
I remember a few times writing on that too.
Interesting.
And when we finally could afford a car, somebody probably loaned us the money. 7 kids and a grandma, mom and dad, that's 10 people in one car. And then they found a used car. I don't know, it was a Studebaker or what it was, I can still remember. We all packed in there and went wherever we wanted to go. We're just thankful we had a car. And then another thing I want to say, when we walked to senior high school, from Harker Street, we walked up the Spring Mill, down McPherson, took a little alley. There was a railroad tracks. We got on the railroad tracks, and we always walked out the railroad tracks and crossed them, went up a hill and went to Mansfield Senior High School. Instead of going all the way downtown or taking a cab, or our parents couldn't take us, they didn't have cars. If they did, they were working. So that was nice too. We always, a few of us get together so we didn't want to be all alone on those train tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the Friendly House? Do you have any memories?
The Friendly
Does that mean
House.
anything to you?
That was sort of a newer thing, yeah. I didn't much go to, but I remember that we had a Friendly House too, yeah. They still have that, I think.
Yeah, it's still
Do
there.
they?
Yeah.
Still there.
What about any memories of like North Lake Park?
Yeah, we used to go out there sometimes too. That was nice. They had a little bit of water there, didn't they? And we used to see the little ducks or geese or whatever they were. That was like a vacation for us, or a special trip to go out there to see that too. That was nice.
Do you have any memories of, and I'm not exactly sure the era that this was, but there used to be a little amusement park there. There was a roller coaster at one time. Now that may be even before your
That was
time.
before me. I heard of it, yeah.
Okay.
It seems to me. Either we talked about it, but I don't remember. Maybe I did see a little bit of it, but and they finally had to take it down or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, something.
What about, say, like the Coliseum, the roller rink that was there? And
Yeah, we didn't go, but I remember them having one. They used to have kids used to go out there roller skating. Yeah.
What
I
a-
remember, excuse me, he's talking about roller skating.
Yeah.
That was sort of a new idea. So, of course, we couldn't afford to buy it. Did somebody give us a pair? Our sister Kay, she used to love to roller. She was the best roller skater. I can still see her. Going down Harker, going down there. Oh my goodness, I could hardly get on her. Poor thing, she's in the nursing home now. Trying to make it go. So, things change. Yeah.
What about any memories, and I don't know if anyone in your family or anything worked at, say, like the steel mill or Ohio Brass, any of the big industry that kind of drove Mansfield back then? Any memories relating to
I don't
that?
remember. Westinghouse was, or just quite a few of our folks, church people, and different ones. Our family, some of them worked there too. But I remember Westinghouse and Ohio Brass. That was a good place to work, they always said. And the steel mill was, a lot of our customers, see, when we had our store, we would have we call it, put it on the book. And they would buy it, and everybody have their own little, and a little compartment kind of thing. And then when they got paid on payday on a Friday at the steel mill, here they came in and paid their grocery bill. That's the connection we had with the steel. But we had quite a few of our people that worked at the steel mill. That was a good place. Is it still there or not? I don't know.
It is. I don't think they have a
Yeah, they're down to
staff
like
like they.
250
Yeah,
workers
it's not. I
or
don't
something.
think it's anything like it
Much
was.
lower.
It's they tore down a big section of it out there.
No, Hyatt Brass was on Main Street.
That was
Main Street.
mhm. There was like Humphreys and
Right.
like you say, Westinghouse was all
Yeah.
down there.
Mansfield Tire. I think it
Mansfield
was.
Mansfield
Tire.
Tire.
Yeah.
Mansfield Tire.
And Esther, did you work at Westinghouse or did just my grandma work there?
I worked in the store all the time.
Okay.
Kay worked there, and Lyd worked there, different ones, but I had to work in the store because Dad was gone.
And that was just during World War II or after?
Oh, I don't know, it was a long time, I can't say,
Okay.
during World War II too, so we finally decided to sell it and move to Sandy Lane, you know, so.
So when you sold the business, did you guys move out then at that point? I mean, was that the end?
Yeah,
like
that was the reason why we sold it. In the meantime, the Pamers lived on, as you went toward Lucas, I guess it's down there, and they had a big farm, and they decided to put it in lots and start building new houses. And they had a nice big lake in their backyard with a bunch of fish and birds and stuff in it. So as they made these big lots to build houses, Mom and I, since my dad was gone, my mom and I lived together. We said, let's just build a nice new house out there. So George Payman, my brother-in-law, he built that, one of those first houses. We lived there for quite a while, and that was nice too. And then Eddie and Joanne, they built on the other side of the lake, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
And your folks, quite a few built nice houses around there. And, yeah, so I guess it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we go out and drive around there, but it's still there. So those are changes.
So, do you have any memories of the shops and the stores that were downtown at the time?
Yeah, I remember Reed's. That was the most expensive place we could go. If you bought at Reed's, well, you could afford to go to Reed's. And then there was Maxwell's. They were across the street. They all were very nice things, and you could buy. If you want to sew your own clothes material, and they had all kinds of stuff already made. And Reed's and Maxwell's and Kresge's was down the Woolworths.
What was you said it was Kresge's?
Kresge's.
Yeah. What was that? I'm not familiar with that one.
What did they sell, Sarah? I think it was like a more of a drugstore. I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay.
But there was a fourth and Main. There was a drugstore there too. Forget the name of that one. Of course, then there was banks. There's a big banks. They're still there now. Those buildings were there then too already. Yeah. See, when my folks moved here from Canada, I was 5 years old, and a lot of those things were already here, and of course a lot of things have been added on ever since. So
See now, for my mom was I was talking to her about Maxwell. She remembers that. Do you remember when it caught on fire at all? And we've seen a photo of it, but
there's a picture in there when Maxwell's was burning.
Yeah. Do you remember what that? Nobody's really sure what. You know,
I
we've yet to have anybody tell us why,
That
but.
must have been more before. I don't quite remember like when that happened, but. And I remember going to J.C. Penney. They were downtown too, on Park Avenue there. And you put some money, go up to the office and what do they call those things? You put them in the little thing, and then instead of having a cash register or anything there, they would always send it to the office.
That's
And then
interesting.
your change came back. And
So how did that work? You went in, picked your item out.
yeah, and a clerk waited on us.
Okay.
Oh yeah, the clerk did all this.
Okay.
But nothing was self-served. I mean, you know, you picked what you want and brought it here on the counter, and she says, okay, it's gonna cost you $20 or whatever you picked out. She gave me the money, she stuck it in that thing, and it went up a little wire and went all the way to it was up on the balcony like, and it came back down and you changed. When we were younger, we'd love to watch that thing.
That's the first I've heard of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I'm picturing something like kind of like what they have at the bank today, like a little tube that you put the money in and like it goes up a wire.
Similar to
Is
that,
that- I mean-
I think it was a little metal kind of a thing.
I see.
Is that, 'cause I can remember.
And then they would send your change back down,
Yeah.
and then you were you know,
Yeah.
receipt or whatever, and you're out the door with your whatever you bought.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I remember that's, because I used to work there for a little while and then I have to help do that too, so.
So was that the only store that did something like that, or were there?
Well, I know they did in Mansfield, but I don't think Reed's, because Reed's they didn't have an upper deck.
Mhm.
And they were closer to their, if they did, it was all on, more or less on one floor. But Reed's was always the most expensive store you could go to. They had a very high quality. Then they had some special dress shops, different ones, I forget the name of them, the smaller ones that you could go and get things, yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. He should have lived at that time, he could have seen all that. You say you're born too late, weren't you?
A little late.
Yeah, there's a lot of history, especially when you're 92, you've gone through quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have any? So what would be your fondest memory of living on Harker Street?
Well, I enjoyed my school. And another thing, after school, we would go out and play a while. We'd go back over there in the schoolyard, school grounds, and we'd make some hopscotch things and play around. Nobody bothered us because the rest of the kids were gone. And I have to say that all the neighbors were very, very nice people. Because I think we learned to know them better because they came to the store. You know, the burgers across the street and the ones that are right next to us, they all came to the store. We learned to know them. And we were like one big family. And as we went down Harker Street, corner Harker on Woodland Avenue, was a church. What was the name of that church? A lot of their folks went to that church. You could see them walking by and stuff. It was more of a, not such a big outfit. Everybody knew everybody more. And people were nice.
Do you happen to remember? We recently found an old photograph of John's Park, and there was a big fountain.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, they had a big fountain there. I remember that too. Yeah.
Do you remember where it was located in the park at all? I know
I
it's.
forget
Yeah.
just where it was. But I do remember seeing that too, so we used to go every once in a while. And sometimes we used it, as our family, we used it for a family get-together, because it had enough space there, you know, everybody brought their food and had a meal together, because our family was so big we didn't have room for everybody in each house, so
Yeah.
there was more space. Yeah, and I have to say, everybody was, you could believe them, they were honest, and they were, you didn't hear so much, what should I say, robbing and stuff. People were more considerate of each other. Yeah.
And in terms of, again, kind of coming back to the, the mixed nature of the neighborhood, racially speaking.
Yeah.
People got along pretty well
Oh,
with their,
yeah.
white neighbor, black neighbor, got along
They
okay.
got along
and then-
pretty good.
yeah.
They got along pretty good.
Okay. So, I know I keep kind of harping on this point about, like what you guys sold in the store. Like, give us an example of, I mean, you say groceries, you could get.
Okay, now, along, if you notice, we had a meat counter, and then, of course, we had beef, pork, and veal, whatever, and then we have all kind of different lunch meat. We would cut it up for whatever they want, and then we have cheeses in there, different kind of cheeses and things. And I remember there was a wire basket about this big around, and it just had like, you could see through the legs. And we had some friends that raised chickens. So, okay, we need eggs to sell. So they would come in and sell us the eggs. And we put those eggs in there. And I remember once a little kid came in and pulled it down. We had eggs all over
Oh,
it.
no.
I remember that too. So I remember that. And of course we had then on our shelves we had all vegetables and fruit. And in our cooler, we had a cooler too to keep our meat in there. And on top of the cooler, they didn't have electrical cooling system so much. So we had, there was a company in Mansfield that was an ice cup company. They sold chunks of ice. I always called him the Ice Man. And every so often he would come in the front door You come back, here's the front door, and you go back through the store part, and then there's a meat. And you have to get the step ladder out of the back room, and up on top of the cooler, he put big chunks of ice in there. This is how we kept the cooler cold for the meat. Yeah. And then in front of that ice box cooler, the man that brought the milk, he put it in there, and they had 2 little doors. Then we also had milk at that time. It was right from a guy that had cows, so it wasn't. Was it pasteurized? Isn't that not the word I wanted to use?
I think so, yeah.
Whatever it is they do with milk today. So John Ziegler was his name. He had a little farm up on, not too far up on one of the streets, and he used to bring and put his milk in there. So.
Well, what about the other, like the meats and the vegetables? Were those just brought in from local farms, or how did that work?
No, we had meat packers.
You did have a
meat
sort of a
packer.
distributor that would come around?
Yeah,
and-
he would come and bring us the meat.
Okay. Interesting. So what about, like, I mean, could you buy a soda or a beer or anything like that in
No,
your
we didn't have
nothing like that at that time? Okay.
You mean to take home?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a feel for like what that would have been like to go into a store at that time in the
We
neighborhood.
didn't sell beer. We didn't believe in it. So.
Okay.
But we had all kind of pop.
Okay, but you could buy a bottle of soda or
Oh,
that
yeah.
kind of thing.
Buy those things and
I see.
Pop. We had all kind of pop too.
Okay.
Were the vegetables fresh, Esther, or
Yeah.
canned?
Both.
Both?
Oh yeah, we had a fresh. There's a little wholesale place downtown. I forget the name. They would bring us bananas. We used to hang. Had a little screw thing, hook, and he'd bring the whole cluster of bananas, the whole thing. He'd hang it up there, and we had what we call a banana knife. And it had a round curve on it. So we just cut them off, and we'd sell our bananas that way. Instead of now, you get them all.
Yeah. So was it? I mean, I think this is obvious, but back then it was harder to get certain fruits and vegetables different
yeah.
times of the year, so you were kind of at the mercy of.
They didn't have the means of storing them and stuff, and then they had to bring them, and it cost more money to get them from wherever they came.
So a little less variety, a little
Probably.
more expensive. Like a banana, I'm sure probably was kind of an exotic thing.
Yeah,
I'm
well, we
I'm
had
assuming.
them, I think, maybe just since I can't remember if I was. Oranges, we always had oranges and apples and things like that.
And you could get them year round. I mean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We had and the wholesale. What was the name of that wholesale? It was down on Main Street.
It's
What's
not
it, Bisman,
Bisman,
maybe?
was it?
Huh?
It wasn't Bisman, was
Well,
it?
we did deal with them too, but there was that had vegetables and things. I forget what.
There was the Farisis were down there. I'm not sure. There was.
I'm not sure. I forget. But so we call, let them know what we need, and they just bring whatever we needed. Yeah, those were the days.
But you never served, like, you didn't serve, like, hot food or anything like that. It was all grocery
All
style.
just groceries.
Things like
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah. That, actually, I remember when it was nothing but neighborhood little stores.
Mhm.
And those big stores came to Mansfield, like A&P and Kroger's, and now they got all these supermarkets that took away. That's why you don't see little stores anymore.
Yeah.
Once in a while you see, like I mean, Lexington Avenue, they have fruits and vegetables, things
Mhm.
like that, but nothing major kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because it took their business away. Yeah.
So do you remember some of the other stores in the neighborhood at all?
I can't remember. There were several of them, but I can't
Yeah,
remember.
so were most of them grocery stores or just kind of specialty item
There was
stores?
one of them too down on Buckingham Street. That was right off of Bowman Street. Not too far from the school. Down farther. I'm sure there was a little one on there too. Yeah. And then I remember too. Shelby had a streetcar that came all the way into Mansfield on the north on Spring Mill Street. Great big. And that's where he went to Shelby. He got on this big, and then when he came, and that where's that little grocery store? Where we get our stuff on Spring Mill. Yeah,
Oh,
Whitles.
Yes,
Whitles.
Vitals.
Yeah. See, in that house, the Weingartners lived in that house. There was a big white house there. And right across the street from them was the fairgrounds, original fairgrounds. And then when the Weingartners, they died or something, and they sold it to my Aunt Katie and Uncle Gus Mallets. And he was a butcher, so he built that little butcher shop in his front yard, so to speak. And then, of course, when he passed away, he was gone. Weidels bought it. And I think they tore the house down, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think a
I
part
don't
of it's
think it's
gone.
there
It's
anymore.
not there anymore. But what I remember, there's this big streetcar, big long streetcar would come to Shelby, all the way. So they must have had a track all the way to Shelby. And then when you get to Mansfield, the tracks, he had to get on a little bit different track. We go over there and we just throw the switch, and he'd get on the right tracks, and he'd go to up Main Street or wherever he was going, you know. So that's the way we always call it, the Shelby streetcar.
Yeah. Do you remember, did it come quite often throughout the day, or was it like just a one time through?
I don't remember how often. Probably, I don't remember. Probably not that often. It probably cost them too much money to
Yeah.
come. Then they had to have stuff on top of the thing, you know, to run.
I see.
Yeah.
So is that running alongside? Were there automobiles then as well on the
Yeah.
like the road and?
Yeah, here was a street, Spring Mill that goes to Shelby.
Mm-hmm.
This was on the side of it,
I see.
just on the side of it. Yeah, so you had to be careful as you drove too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember Aunt Katie, she built, or the Weidels are now, first she used to have like a little fresh fruit and vegetables. And I was big enough, so Mom said, okay, you need a job, you have to make $3 a week, you go up and help Aunt Katie sell. So I go up there, and her house, where she lived, had a nice big front porch, and it was all glassed in. And I was sitting there, and it was getting cooler. When the customer came, I ran out, and then waited, and went back in and get out of the hair a little bit. So that was nice too.
Do you have any memories of the, like you mentioned, the old, the original fairgrounds being there? Any memories of things, events there or anything?
That was nice. The fairgrounds. See, in those days, they had more vegetation and things like that that they showed, and that they had horses that would run around and stuff. So,
Are you referring to like the county fair, or?
oh, much smaller.
Yeah,
Much smaller, yeah.
I see.
Yeah, I just call it the fairgrounds.
So I understand like occasionally a circus would come to town or other things. I mean, anything you
It
can
could
remember?
have been, maybe
Yeah.
they did go up there, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And as I think back, there was an insurance company as you go out Spring Mill. What was the name of that insurance company?
Lumberman's.
So,
Yeah,
maybe
right. I remember they were not too far up that too. So. A lot of people worked there, so a lot of cars went by there too. Then. Of course, there's a lot of traffic because a lot of people went back and forth to Shelby.
Mhm.
So that's the only, they could go back and forth.
And folks, I understand we're working at this what they call the Shelby Depot. Does that mean anything to
I
you?
don't remember that, yeah. But I think they had.
I want to say that was one of the big employers
It
out
was
there.
like a
but
military, something
like
like
a
that.
military
Yeah.
surplus.
I'm not sure, I forgot about that,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. You were glad to get electricity and things. Yeah.
So do you have any fond memories of teaching? You know, as long for the years you teach, any stuff you remember fondly about that?
Well, I taught about 22 years, because I went into it later. I didn't go right away because I was busy helping in the store and stuff. I remember really had nice kids, and I made friends with a lot of them, and I enjoyed them. Yeah. I told you, I use a ping pong paddle. Yeah.
You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. But they were pretty. When I think back, if they whispered, I think, hey, he's a bad kid. Now look what they do. They pull each other's hair and everything. It's more than whispering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How things change.
Yeah. Of course, I think back then parents were much more strict with their kids. My dad was very strict with us. He was very strict to the point that my mom used to say, I'm glad our dad's strict with you. It helps me raise you. I don't have to smack you. So if you said it once, you better do it, and we did it. And I think a lot of dads were doing it that way those days. That was their way of raising their kids, I guess. Yeah.
That's great. So do you have any more on that?
So, so do you have a worse memory at all, living in the North End?
I have to stop and think what it would be. And that's especially with this one thing, I remember being on the, we always took our kids out on playground duty. It was time for recess, you know. And we had to go out with them, and we had cinders at that time. And I remember this little girl come running up to me, and she was crying and crying. What's the matter? She said, "Oh, she's saying terrible things about my mama," and I just feel so bad. And I remember that. So, but generally speaking, I had good memories of all of them. I'm sure they're all grandparents themselves now. This many years ago. Sometimes I wonder whatever happened. Where did this go on that one? What happened to those kids? Kids we had quite a few.
So did you attend church in the area growing up?
Not in that area. I
Not
always
there.
went to the one downtown, our church. The one I told you about, there was on First Street there, and then the one here, but we never went to the local churches.
Okay.
But there were quite a few there. They had a lot of good churches.
Yeah, do you remember any of them at all?
I forget the names of them. There was one down on Free Methodist, and there was one up there, corner of Harker and Louise Avenue. I forget the name of it. Yeah, I forget those names, but they had that one too. So they had their own nice variety of them. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't covered at all?
Remind me, Sarah.
I know you, mister. Was Aunt Katie the only one who lived on Spring Mill? Because I thought you cleaned someone's house on Spring Mill.
I cleaned for her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, then she sold her place to Eddie and Joanne.
Oh.
When they first got married, they
I
bought
didn't
her
know that.
place.
Okay.
They lived up there, same house. Yeah. Yeah, I cleaned for Andorra.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, she had cancer patients, and she lived just down on Spring Mill, not too far from that. She and her husband, her husband, Uncle John, where he got it, whether it was, they made some kind of salve. And they used to have, they had two kinds of salve. A salve that kills the flesh and a salve that heals. And if somebody had cancer or something, breast cancer or on the arms or wherever, they wanted to try that, and they would have, it was in their home that they did this. It's just down 2 or 3 houses from the fairgrounds on that side. And then they would put this, say they had some cancer there or something, they would put this on. And every day they had to change that. And then when they got down, they saw that the cancer was all gone. And then they would start putting on the healing salve. And then I worked for them, and I helped. After school, I would go there, even when they did on Walnut Street first, and then they moved out there. When I went to John Simpson, I used to go down there, and I used to help clean the house, and she had renters upstairs. I helped her then too. But that was another thing they had on Spring Mill there for a long time. And actually, a lot of people, I think they saved their lives because nobody took it over when they died. And it was forgotten about. Now they have all this other stuff, and sometimes it's successful, sometimes it isn't.
Yeah.
People still get cancer, don't they?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now, were you a married woman?
No, I was never married.
No. Okay.
I was the only one out of 7 kids. No, I always lived with my mother all the time until she died. I just felt, in my mind, I don't know, that was God's plan for me. Because I had several times opportunities to get married, several in the church and out of the church have asked me to date and get married. I didn't feel like I should. And then since my dad died so early, my mom lived to be 99, she needed somebody too, so I think my job was to take care of her. And the good part of it was she was so easy to live with. She was never complaining, and She'd been old Grouch, should have been a different story, you know. And then it was a blessing too that God kept her pretty healthy till she died. She had a few things, but very few.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not, you can't help when you get sick, you get this and that. So
Yeah.
I think it was all a blessing from God too. It was good for me too. And then another part I liked about that, since she had other kids who were married and had kids, and they'd always come home and see grandma. Then I learned to know my nieces and nephews and their kids so much more, because I was right there. Is that right?
Yep. Did the neighborhood change during World War II? Because I remember you saying about hearing it on the radio and stuff, and did a bunch of men leave? And
Well, when the World War II, a lot of them had to go. They were drafted, is that what you call it? They had to go. So that was a sad time too. Some of them never came back alive.
so did your business suffer then?
No,
No.
the people were still there. The wives and their kids and stuff, no, that didn't bother our business. But I remember they felt bad. I can imagine, because you don't know if they're coming back, you know. Some were here, a lot of them had to go overseas, wherever they went with that. Like any war, they have to go. Yeah.
So anybody else have any more questions?
I mean, we've covered a lot of ground. Again, if they have any.
Did I answer good enough?
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's really great.
I put some candy out. I want you guys to get sweet.
Oh,
there.
okay.
Oh, thank you. We do appreciate that. Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, if you don't have anything else that you'd like to
Right now,
share with us, or
That's one thing I've noticed lately. I really am pretty forgetful, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's a little bit hard to, when you live alone, I forgot, did I do this or did I do that? Mark everything that you notes all over.
Mhm.
But we have friends that tell us, don't we? Remind us. Well, I hope I was.
Yeah.
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah.
We want to thank you very much for inviting
Yeah.
us into your home and talking to us about this stuff. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate
Thank you
it.
very
I'm glad
much.
you can add to whatever.
So yeah, we were possibly doing second, going through and doing, further interviews with people down the road. So yeah, if you would be interested, we would definitely.
And that's why I think I liked when my aunts and uncles came to visit my mother. They talked about the old country when they lived in Canada.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't know about it.
Exactly.
You know, it's nice to hear from somebody that has gone through it.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're
That's-
trying to do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we want people to learn about the neighborhood and how Mansfield was, through the people that actually live there. So.
It's stuff that you can't pick out of a book. I mean,
That's right.
as nice as like a book like that with all the old images is
Yeah.
one part of it. People telling the story is a whole nother
Oh, yeah.
thing. So that's
I see, like, for instance, my dad and his family moved here when he was only 5 or 6 years old. So he went to school in Mansfield. Because he went to school, he learned the English language real well.
Mhm.
And that's why it made him a good speaker and stuff. Now, when my mom came, and she had sisters and brothers here already. And she wanted to come to, America was such a wonderful place, and she wanted to be here too. But she only taught German.
Mhm.
And she had to learn it, and she learned pretty good, but she still said some words half German sometimes. And then finally her mother came, Grandma Wilging, and that was nice. We could meet her yet.
Did you say Wilging?
Wilging, yeah.
Any relation to the Wilgings, the meat market?
Andy Wilging is related to me.
Yeah.
At the meat market, yeah.
Okay. And so you have relatives in that business. You have relatives in the
Harker.
Boliantz hardware. Okay. Any others that were?
I gotta be careful what I say and do, don't I?
Yeah.
She has nieces and nephews that are Pamer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pamer
Okay,
chiropractor.
A lot of chiropractors.
So do you know Megan Pamer? I go to that chiropractor myself.
Yeah,
So,
I can sure.
That's her niece.
Oh, that's your niece? Oh, yeah,
Well, her
she's
great niece.
great niece. Okay.
That's, which girl is she?
Dave's.
Dave's girl, yeah.
Yeah, she's a nice lady. She's
Yeah,
real nice.
I used to go too. I used to go to all of them, but can't get out much anymore. So. And then, chiropractic is pretty prevalent in their families.
Yeah, they do have a lot of chiropractors. Yeah.
They do a good job too.
Well, we won't take up any more of your
Yeah.
time. We really
Thank you.
appreciate
Yeah,
it,
we
so.
do appreciate it.